We three kings of Israel are Saul, David, and Solomon. My name is Adam, and we are running through 2 Samuel at this point. We are all the way up to chapter 20. We're getting into chapter 20. Excuse me. We have seen that David's own son has kind of rebelled against it. Well, more than that. He's plotted against him and rebelled against him and tried to take the kingdom, and David has been restored to the kingdom. Hurrah. And at the end of 2 Samuel 19, we see that David has come back to Jerusalem after being driven out, and he's back in the kingdom. Very good. And so, chapter 20, verse 1. Now there happened to be a worthless man whose name was Sheba, the son of Bichri, a Benjamite, and he blew the trumpet and said, "We have no portion in David." Okay, so he was not willing to accept David back. "And we have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to his tents, O Israel." Now understand that the men of Judah had brought David back. The men of Israel wanted to bring David back into Jerusalem to be the king again. And the words of the men of Judah were fiercer than the words of the men of Israel at the end of chapter 19. So maybe some of this stemmed from that. I don't know. It doesn't say specifically. At any rate, verse 2, so all the men of Israel withdrew from David and followed Sheba, the son of Bichri. But the men of Judah followed their king steadfastly from the Jordan to Jerusalem. Again, the theme of Israel not following. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 concubines whom he had left to care for the house, and put them in a house under guard, and provided for them, but did not go into them. So they were shut up until the day of their death, living as if in widowhood. So remember, the 10 concubines were the ones that his son, Absalom, took, set a tent up on top of the roof, and in front of all of Israel who could see it, clearly went into them. He, had relations with them. So David would not do that. So he still had that problem going on. But verse 4, the king said to Amasa, "Call the men of Judah together to me within 3 days and be here yourself." So remember, Amasa now has taken over, what was his name? Taken over the other guy. I'm going to find his name, but for some reason I am drawing a blank here. It is Joab. There we go. I don't know what I was thinking or where I was trying to go with that. At any rate, Joab was the commander of the army, and David then set up Amasa after Joab had killed his son when David told him not to. The king said to Amasa, "Call the men of Judah together to me within 3 days and be here yourself." So Amasa went to summon Judah, but he delayed beyond the set time that had been appointed him. And David said to Abishai, "Now Sheba the son of Bichri will do to us more harm than Absalom. Take your lord's servants and pursue him, lest he get himself to fortified cities and escape from us." And there went out after him Joab's men and the Cherethites and the Pelethites and all the mighty men. They went out from Jerusalem to pursue Sheba the son of Bichri. When they were at the great stone that is in Gibeon, Amasa came to meet them. Now Joab was wearing a soldier's garment, and over it was a belt with a sword in its sheath fastened on his thigh, and as he went forward, it fell out. And Joab said to Amasa, "Is it well with you, my brother?" And Joab took Amasa by the beard with his right hand to kiss him, but Amasa did not observe the sword that was in Joab's hand. So Joab struck him with it in the stomach and spilled his entrails to the ground without striking a second blow, and he died. Okay, Joab didn't take it well, apparently. Then Joab and Abishai, his brother, pursued Sheba, the son of Bichri. And remember, Amasa was not doing his part, so Joab, I guess, took it into his hands again. Verse 11, one of Joab's young men took his stand by Amasa and said, "Whoever favors Joab and whoever is for David, let him follow Joab." And Amasa lay wallowing in his blood in the highway, and anyone who came by seeing him stopped. And when the man saw that all the people stopped, he carried Amasa out of the highway into the field and threw a garment over him. Okay, wow, yeah, you thought Game of Thrones was bad. When he was taken out of the highway, all the people went on after Joab to pursue Sheba, the son of Bichri. And Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel to Abel of Beth Maacah, and all the Bichrites assembled and followed him in. And all the men who were with Joab came and besieged him in Abel of Beth Maacah. They cast up a mound against the city, and it stood against the rampart, and they were battering the wall to throw it down. Then a wise woman called from the city, "Listen, listen! Tell Joab, come here that I may speak to you." And he came near her, and the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He answered, "I am." Then she said to him, "Listen to the words of your servant." And he answered, "I am listening." Then she said, "They used to say in former times, 'Let them but ask counsel at Abel.' And so they settled the matter. I am one of those who are peaceable and faithful in Israel. You seek to destroy a city that is a mother in Israel. Why will you swallow up the heritage of the Lord?" Joab answered, "Far be it from me. Far be it that I should swallow up or destroy. That is not true. But a man of the hill country of Ephraim, called Sheba, the son of Bichri, has lifted up his hand against King David. Give him up alone, and I will withdraw from the city." And the woman said to Joab, "Behold, his head shall be thrown to you over the wall." Then the woman went to all the people in her wisdom, and they cut off the head of Sheba, the son of Bichri, and threw it out to Joab. So he blew the trumpet, and they dispersed from the city, every man to his home, and Joab returned to Jerusalem to the king. My word, the things that went on here. I mean, this had to be inspiration for all kinds of, any kind of medieval kingdom stuff and all the stuff you think is just awful in shows like Game of Thrones. Yeah. I mean, this is stuff that happened in real life. My goodness. Verse 23, now Joab was in command of all the army of Israel. Yeah, he was now because Amasa was dead, because he killed him. And Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was in command of the Cherethites and the Pelethites, and Adoram was in charge of the forced labor, and Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was the recorder. And Sheva was secretary, and Zadok and Abiathar were priests, and Ira, the Jairite, was also David's priest. And now we have chapter 21. So again, there was another rebellion. Again, the Israelites followed this other person who rebelled. It wasn't quite the same, and it was dealt with a lot more quickly than Absalom's. Probably easier to be dealt with quickly because it wasn't David's son, the son of the king. However, it was dealt with. That was quashed. David's king again over Israel and Judah together. Hurrah. Chapter 21, verse 1. Now there was a famine in the days of David for 3 years, year after year. And David sought the face of the Lord, and the Lord said, "There is blood guilt on Saul and on his house, because he put the Gibeonites to death." So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not of the people of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. Although the people of Israel had sworn to spare them, Saul had sought to strike them down in his zeal for the people of Israel and Judah. There was no doubt Saul had zeal for the people of Israel and Judah, just not quite the same zeal for the Lord that he should have had, and definitely not the faith in God he should have had. Verse 3, and David said to the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you, and how shall I make atonement that you may bless the heritage of the Lord?" The Gibeonites said to him, "It is not a matter of silver or gold between us and Saul or his house, neither is it for us to put any man to death in Israel." And he said, "What do you say that I shall do for you?" They said to the king, "The man who consumed us and planned to destroy us so that we should have no place in all the territory of Israel, let 7 of his sons be given to us, so that we may hang them before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the chosen of the Lord." And the king said, "I will give them." Remember, Saul's sons were not to inherit the kingdom. Obviously, that didn't happen, but even still, Mephibosheth, when Absalom rebelled, Mephibosheth had thought, maybe I could get the kingdom back at this point, right? Verse 7, but the king spared Mephibosheth, even Mephibosheth, the son of Saul's son, Jonathan, because of the oath of the Lord that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. The king took 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, Armoni and Mephibosheth, and the 5 sons of Merab, the daughter of Saul, whom she bore to Adriel, the son of Barzillai, the Maholathite. And he gave them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the mountain before the Lord, and the 7 of them perished together. They were put to death in the first days of harvest at the beginning of barley harvest. Then Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock from the beginning of harvest until rain fell upon them from the heavens. And she did not allow the birds of the air to come upon them by day, or the beasts of the field by night. When David was told what Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, the concubine of Saul, had done, David went and took the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan from the men of Jabesh Gilead, who had stolen them from the public square of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hanged them on the day the Philistine killed Saul in Gilboa. And he brought up from there the bones of Saul and the bones of his son Jonathan, and they gathered the bones of those who were hanged. And they buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the land of Benjamin of Zelah, and the tomb of Kish, his father. And they did all that the king commanded, and after that God responded to the plea for the land. That can be a hard one to take. But Saul's actions had dire consequences even after he was gone. Whether this is what God wanted or not, it was clear that Saul had committed a sin against the Gibeonites in his zeal for the people of Judah, the people of Israel, not in his zeal for God. And there was something that had to be paid for that, a price that had to be paid. In this case, it ended up being the sons of Saul. It doesn't say anywhere in there that that is what God commanded, but because a price was paid, God listened and responded to the plea for the land. If it was a different price, I believe he probably would have responded at that point as well. But the Gibeonites were the ones that were asked and were allowed to request whatever it is they wanted, and they were granted that request as well. Moving on to verse 15, there was war again between the Philistines and Israel, and David went down together with his servants, and they fought against the Philistines, and David grew weary. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of the giants whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, and who was armed with a new sword, thought to kill David, because that worked so well for Goliath, who tried that before. 17, but Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, came to his aid and attacked the Philistine and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "You shall no longer go out with us to battle, lest you quench the lamp of Israel." David was getting up there at this point. After this, there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai, the Hushathite, struck down Saph, who was one of the descendants of the giants. And there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. And Elhanan, the son of Jair-Oregim, the Bethlehemite, struck down Goliath, the Gittite, the shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam. So there was another Goliath out there. I think after this point, if my name was Goliath and the shaft of my spear was like a weaver's beam, I'd be kind of scared to go up against Israel. Verse 20, and there was again war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was descended from the giants. And when he taunted Israel, Jonathan, the son of Shimei, David's brother, struck him down. These 4 were descended from the giants in Gath. They fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. Again, God is bigger than giants. And it just doesn't work out well for you if you're a giant and you're trying to take on the people of God. He will deliver. Chapter 22, this is David's song of deliverance that he spoke. So, basically a psalm, just like the psalms that he wrote. And there are wonderful psalms, and if you do the study of where David was in his life when he wrote these different psalms, and a lot of them introduce it that way, and they tell you where he is and what's going on with him. Just incredible things. They really come to life in that sense. So chapter 22, verse 1, and David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge, my Savior, you save me from violence. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. For the waves of death encompassed me, the torrents of destruction assailed me, the cords of Sheol entangled me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord, to my God I called. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry came to his ears. Then the earth reeled and rocked. The foundations of the heavens trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He was seen on the wings of the wind. He made darkness around him, his canopy, thick clouds, a gathering of water. Out of the brightness before him, coals of fire flamed forth. The Lord thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice, and he sent out arrows and scattered them, lightning and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen. The foundations of the world were laid bare at the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands. He rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord, and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his rules were before me, and from his statutes I did not turn aside. I was blameless before him, and kept myself from guilt, and the Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sight. With the merciful, you show yourself merciful. With the blameless man, you show yourself blameless. With the purified, you deal purely, and with the crooked, you make yourself seem torturous. You save a humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. For you are my lamp, O Lord, and my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? This God is my strong refuge, and has made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer, and set me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war, so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your gentleness made me great. You gave a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. I pursued my enemies and destroyed them. I did not turn back until they were consumed. I consumed them. I thrust them through so that they did not rise. They fell under my feet, for you equipped me with strength for the battle. You made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, those who hated me, and I destroyed them. They looked, but there was none to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as the dust of the earth. I crushed them and stamped them down like the mire of the streets. You delivered me from strife with my people. You kept me as the head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. Foreigners came cringing to me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of their fortresses. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and exalted be my God, the rock of my salvation. The God who gave me vengeance and brought down peoples under me, who brought me out from my enemies. You exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from men of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing praises to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. What a beautiful, beautiful psalm that is. Excuse me. What an incredible word picture that David paints. My goodness, that is just a beautiful, beautiful song. Not much more needs to be said about that. In chapter 22, we're going to read about David's last words. As it starts out in verse 1, now these are the last words of David, the oracle of David, the son of Jesse, the oracle of the man who was raised on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, the sweet psalmist of Israel. The Spirit of the Lord speaks by me, his word is on my tongue. The God of Israel has spoken. The rock of Israel has said to me, when one rules justly over men, ruling in the fear of God, he dawns on them like the morning light. Like the sun shining forth on a cloudless morning, like rain that makes grass to sprout from the earth. For does not my house stand so with God? For he has made with me an everlasting covenant, ordered in all things and secure. For he will not cause to prosper will he not cause to prosper all my help and my desire? But worthless men are all like thorns that are thrown away, for they cannot be taken with the hand. But the man who touches them arms himself with iron and the shaft of a spear, and they are utterly consumed with fire. And those last words set up what will end up being toward the end of David's life. These next few chapters are just going to kind of wrap up the end of his life and how things transpired. We're going to move on. In chapter 23 and verse 8, these are the names of the mighty men whom David had. Josheb Bashebeth, we'll call it that. That sounds right, yeah. A Tachamonite. He was chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 800 whom he killed at one time. Holy crow. And next to him, among the three mighty men, was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, son of Ahohi. He was with David, and when they defied the Philistines who were gathered there for battle, and the men of Israel withdrew, he rose and struck down the Philistines until his hand was weary, and his hand clung to the sword. And the Lord brought about a great victory that day, and the men returned after him only to strip the slain. And next to him was Shema, the son of Agi the Harahite. The Philistines gathered together at Lehi, where there was a plot of ground full of lentils, and the men fled from the Philistines. But he took his hand in the midst of the plot and defended it, and struck down the Philistines, and the Lord worked a great victory. And 3 of the 30 chief men went down and came about harvest time to David at the cave of Adullam, when the band of Philistines was encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. And David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate and carried it and brought it to David. But he would not drink of it. He poured it out to the Lord and said, "Far be it from me, O Lord, that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives?" Therefore he would not drink it. These things the 3 mighty men did. So these weren't the ones, Joab and such and Abishai. These were others who were mighty men, very much so, who worked for David, but did not, and fought for David, but they weren't commanders of the army. Verse 18, now Abishai, the brother of Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was chief of the 30, and he wielded his spear against 300 men, and killed them and won a name beside the 3. He was the most renowned of the 30 and became their commander, but he did not attain to the 3. And Benaiah the son of Jehoiada was a valiant man of Kabzeel, a doer of great deeds. He struck down 2 Ariels of Moab. He also went down and struck down a lion in a pit on a day when snow had fallen. And he struck down an Egyptian, a handsome man. The Egyptian had a spear in his hand, but Benaiah went down to him with a staff and snatched the spear out of the Egyptian's hand and killed him with his own spear. These things did Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and won a name beside the 3 mighty men. He was renowned among the 30, but he did not attain to the 3, and David set him over his bodyguard. Asahel, the brother of Joab, was one of the 30. Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shema of Harad, Elika of Harad, Helez the Paltite, Ira the son of Ikesh of Tekoa, Abiezer of Anathoth, Mebunai the Hushathite, Zalman the Ahohite, Maharai of Netopha, Heleb the son of Baana of Netopha, Ittai the son of Ribal of Gibeah of the people of Benjamin, Benaiah of Pirathon, Hiddai of the brooks of Gaash, Abi Albon the Arbathite, Asmaveth of Baharim, Eliabah the Shaalbanite, the sons of Jashin, Jonathan, Shammah the Hararite. Yeah, that's easy to say. Ahiam the sons of Shirar the Hararite, Eliphalet the son of Ahasbai of Maacah, Eliam the son of Ahithophel of Gilo, Hezro of Carmel, Paarai the Arbite, Egal the son of Nathan of Zobah, Bani the Gadite, Zelek the Ammonite, Naharai of Beeroth, the armor-bearer of Joab the son of Zeruiah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, Uriah the Hittite, 37 in all. Okay, so 37 in all, 3 of them very mighty men. And what this is a permanent record of those men. These stood out among all the rest, at least enough for their names to be written down. Faithful, strong, God was with them. It is a mouthful to try to get through those names, as you could tell, but it's important to note that there was a record here. All scripture is God-breathed, right? Given by God. And God saw fit to inspire whoever wrote this scripture to include those names specifically in the record to be remembered for all time. That's a pretty great testament to their faithfulness, to the work that they did. And I think they were part of that legacy that David left, which was to go, to do, for the hand of your God is with you, to trust God in the things that you do. And they did, trusting in God. Until next time.